Hello and welcome to another edition of Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. I'm Devlin and thank you for making me a part of your week. I totally appreciate when you hit that play button or download us from iTunes or my blog spot. You don't know how much it means to me, especially in the summer. I know things get really busy and we're outdoors a lot and we're doing all this stuff. But, the fact that I still have people listening and, I always joke about my 17 listeners. I don't know if it's gone up, gone down, what, but I do still get some comments from people and tell me that they've listened to certain episodes. So I know people are still listening, and that means so much to me. I am going to make a big deal of this because I know other shows that I listen to or watch always go, we hit 15,000 likes and stuff. So I'm going to give a shout out because I'm very happy for this. Now, I've always said I don't care if I'm ever a big name celebrity, but I like that I'm a local celebrity. And I recently hit 100 likes and on my Facebook page for the Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. I'm very happy about this. I know a lot of people think 100 likes, that's pretty depressing, but I said, you know what? I've been sitting at about 94 or something for the longest time. So I did some shameless promotion and got it up past 100. And I want to thank each and every one of you who are on that. And I as I said, it makes me feel so good to do that. So I consider it a milestone. I like to try to be positive. And so 100 likes to me is everything. Mondo Nostalgia is sitting around 82 right now. But if you think about it, Devlin's Pirate Radio Show has been up for about a year. So the fact that in a few short months I've already hit 80 is an incredible thing. So, some people look at that like, boy, those are crappy numbers. But me, that's world domination right there. That's world domination. I'm in a little bit of a good mood, so hopefully that translates to a great show. I'll be talking a little bit about everything today. Do some reminiscing, have some opinions, but I thought I'd start off with a very unusual topic because I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I have a couple of stories in this vein, but I'm going to start things off with talking about drag queens. Yes, I said it, drag queens. I've always been a fan of drag queens. I've always been a fan of when women dress up, like when women dress up. And yes, I know a drag queen is not that, but I'm just saying that I enjoy when women dress up very feminine things, lingerie, stockings, and stuff like that. And when I first saw my first drag queen, I was absolutely blown away. It would have been on TV because I don't think I've ever been to an actual drag show. If I do, it's not sticking out in my head. But, to see someone like a RuPaul or a Divine or any kind of, just how elaborate they get and how feminine they look. It just endears me to the whole art of it. And the expense, I can't even imagine what they go into. Because, if I was a drag queen, I'd want to do the best I possibly can. I have been in drag a few times. I think we've talked about it on a Topics Teaserama. I've been in drag a couple of times, but it's just for Halloween and stuff. And I've never gone all out there in like the makeup and stuff. I've had makeup on and stuff, but I'll tell those stories in a bit. The reason drag queens have been on my mind so much is since I started working at Value Village, I've been getting a lot of people. Like, I've been painting my nails for quite a while now. This last stint, probably going into about 3-4 years now. But before that, when I hit 30, I painted my nails for a while. But it hasn't been since the last month or two. Have I gotten at least 3 people who asked me if I'm a drag queen? Yeah, and it's weird because you'd think that, this is something that would come up regularly due to the fact that, I paint my nails and they probably think, oh, he's just not dressed totally. And all times it's not been in a bad way. It's not like, are you a drag queen or something? It's see how dramatic I am? Are you a drag queen or something? Sounding like a drag queen accusing another drag queen. No, it's all been just like, oh, do you do drag? I remember the one guy was just, do you do drag? And I said, oh, no, 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 I just do this. This is me. That seems to be my go-to answer now. This is just me. And they said, oh, well. And the one time the guy asked me, I just said, I wish. I decided to change it up a bit. I wish I was a drag performer. And he just looked at me and said, well, it's never too late. And then the last time I got asked was I was at the jewelry counter at Value Village. And I won't say their name, but they were looking for some bling and noticed my nails and then asked me if I went to the embassy and mentioned that, they go to, that they're a drag performer at the embassy. And I don't want to call them out. Not just because they're a drag queen, they're probably proud of that, but they don't want people to know they're shopping at Value Village. I'm obligated not to be calling people out when I shop there, or when they shop there. But anyhow, it was nice chatting. And I actually said, no, I've been to the embassy, but I've never been to one of the drag shows. Or if I did, as I said, it might have been a long time ago. I don't know why I've never been to a drag show. As I said, I have all the respect for drag queens. I think they're amazing. But, these 3 times I've been asked, they have blown me away because I'm at a crossroads in my life. And, I've been, should I stick with improv? Should I leave improv? I'm kind of hanging on by my painted nails. But I'm, now at a point that I'm not sure if I'm going to try to grasp on to some improv and stick around there or if I'm going to finally just let go. But anyhow, crossroads lead me to look into all avenues. And when people started asking me, are you a drag queen? I can't stop but think, never thought of this before. And now, before you get ready to buy your tickets for my first drag show, I'm not saying I'm going to do this. And it's just made me think about the whole idea of, could I be a drag performer? Now, first of all, I've seen very beautiful drag queens, and I can tell you right now, I would not be one of those. The last time I dressed as a woman, I thought I looked ravishing. I had long Blake Lively hair and a beautiful gown on and did my makeup just a little. And when I looked in the mirror, I really saw a beautiful woman. Then when I saw pictures of me, and if I can find them, I will post them, I did not think I made a beautiful woman. And not even in a Patrick Swayze sort of way. Because if you see Patrick Swayze in To Wong Fu, he is a very attractive man. I don't have to tell you about Patrick Swayze. But he had a handsome face when he played a woman, and he was very elegant and graceful. And I actually thought he made a wonderful woman. But I did not look very good. And maybe if I met with a makeup artist who could do up my makeup, and this isn't just a, begging for anybody who does makeup up there, come and see me. But I would almost like to see if I could make myself look beautiful as a woman. And as for the performance, I think it'd be good. But, I think I could hold myself as a woman. I remember one time I went to a really rugged sports bar. Well, maybe it wasn't that rugged, but it was on Barton Street. It used to be a place called Ruoff's. And I love telling this story because it builds my ego. And I was dressed as a woman, and I had a really fun night. I got to sing a lot of female songs, my favorite being Madonna's Hanky Panky. And I also got to do a duet with my brother, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And I got to do the woman's part, which I always used to do when we were kids because he was the older brother and he wanted to do Meatloaf. So I got to play the woman. And it was nice to do it finally live on stage. But one of my favorite stories about this, and maybe I looked more attractive because I was a lot younger as a woman this time, but I remember there was this guy that was constantly hitting on me. He wanted to buy me drinks. I didn't accept them. But there's a wonderful part of this story, but he'd keep coming over. He was very drunk, very cute redneck too, I might add. Not saying he was like some old disheveled person, but I would have been flattered by that too, to be honest. But he was actually quite cute. And if I was a naughty girl, I may have flirted back a little more. But there is another reason I didn't flirt back too much. But he'd keep coming up and he said, I know you're a guy, but you're the classiest chick in this place. I've been watching you and all the other women. You act like a woman, and all the other women are not acting like a woman. I guess he liked his women very feminine, because that's the role I play. And I was very flattered by that, to be in a room full of women and this. Okay, so he was drunk. He still thought I was the sexiest woman in the place. But I love that he called out that he knew I was a man. And that made me very ego-bound, because it made me think, God, I must be hot. I'm turning this redneck boy on, and that. It would have been more sexier if later in the evening another woman didn't come up to me and go, I want to just apologize for my husband. I know he's been hitting on you all night. And please know that he is a very, nice guy. He can be a little over the top. He would never do anything to take it too far. So that was my my experiences as a drag woman. So what I was going with this was, one night I felt sexy as a woman, and the other one was not so sexy as a woman. A little offshoot on this story is, I remember when I went to the Staircase Halloween party. That's where I dressed as the woman, the unattractive one I saw later in pictures. I also, what I love about it was there was a Spectator story about the party, and they were talking to some of the people there, and whenever they talked to somebody, they would just put what they were dressed as. And so you'd get like, this person, devil, this person, mad scientist. And I remember for this interview, mine just said, Devlin Bishop, in brackets, woman. I fucking loved that. I don't know, it was just something fun about it. It just reminded me of like those old Monty Python skits where it's like, I was offended by that skit, and it's like, John Pennington, Mrs. And I don't know why, I just got a kick out of it. But anyhow, get back to my story. If I was going to, and this is a big was, there's no drag shows planned. But anyhow, I would probably be an unattractive one. Like, I would play up the fact that I was sexy, knowing that I was more edgy. And what I'm talking about more is like Divine. One of my huge favorites is Divine. I'm going to have to talk about Divine at some point on my Mondo Nostalgia or here, but I'm going to do that a little bit now. What I loved most about Divine was now for those of you who don't know Divine, you should check it out. Divine worked with John Waters a lot and was like I'm going to guess around a 300-pound transvestite who, he was this really nice, sweet guy, but his stage persona was Divine. And he came in and kicked doors down because of the fact that, back in the 70s, 80s, he eventually became a cult icon, but when he first started, he pissed off a lot of drag queens, because a lot of drag queens were desperately trying to be just beautiful and gorgeous and every man's dream. And Divine came in knowing, well, I'm 300 pounds, I'm going to have fun with it. So to me, when I look at Divine, I think very sexy. But other people were just like, oh, you're making a mockery of it. And they didn't take him very seriously, or her. And basically, she would come in and she'd shave her eyebrows off. Sometimes she'd have two sets of eyebrows too, which I also thought was kind of fun. But she had this roar. She didn't try to sing like Barbara Streisand or Judy Garland. She just had this roar, and she was her own identity. And I said to myself, well, if I ever do drag, I'm going to do it in that way. I want to just come in and be my own person, because that's all I've ever been. Now, as I said, thinking about the idea of being a drag queen, I can see so many things I would be against. And it's not just the whole, oh, I don't want to be seen like this. The idea of performing dressed as a woman excites me. Because from like seeing people like RuPaul to even, the lead actor in Mrs. Brown's Boys, the idea of just playing a woman would just be wonderful. Like oh my God, dare I say I get yet another new persona? I've got Devlin, I've got Donald, I've got Count Devula, and who knows, maybe there'll be a woman added to this list. Now, I'm not taking this too serious, but I'll be honest with you. I have been thinking about it. For those of you who are scared right now and a little nervous, don't be. It's just a role. And for those of you who are supportive and are getting ready to type your emails of, please do it, we'd love to see that show. We think it'd be great. Thank you for that. I used to love watching my mom put on her makeup. Boy, must be emotional when I just mention my mom and I can feel like the lump in my throat grow. But I did, and that was back in the day. She didn't wear a lot of makeup, but when she went out or went to the doctors, yeah, my mom was the old-fashioned type that she couldn't look sick to go to the doctor. She had to make sure her hair was nice. She had all her makeup on because, you'll get a better diagnosis if you don't actually look sick. And I used to love the smell of the lipstick. It was very chalky back then, and it would just come on, and then after she'd put it on, she'd get the toilet paper. And I don't know if women still have to do that, but I used to like when they do that. Sometimes when I put lipstick on for Count Devlin and stuff, I'll purse my lips on a Kleenex or on a handkerchief or something, and I'll feel like my mom. I was going to go into a thing, but I'm already a little late in this segment, so I'm not. But I was going to talk about a time where, no, I'm not going there. I will talk about that another time when you catch me at not a darker, because it's not necessarily a dark story, but it kind of plays me off as a little stupid. So we will wait on that. But, it's been in my head, and I don't think it's going to happen. Because, being at a crossroads, I've tried many different things of what I want to do. Technically, Mondo Nostalgia could be a crossroads kind of thing. I'm getting a little worried because this crossroads is taking a little bit of time. I'm going to end with a positive story, though. I know you're all pissed right now at me because, he was going to go somewhere he's never been before, but I'm not going to do that. I'll save that when I need ratings. No. I'm going to end with another Value Village encounter that I don't believe I've talked to on Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. And I kind of want to keep this story, and I have a feeling this one day might leave my head. And then I can listen to these shows and be like, oh, it was a wonderful time. But I have a feeling this is going to stick with me for a very long time. In between that time of being called a drag queen, I also had another person that didn't ask me a question, just boldly made a statement about me. And I'm already got tears in my eyes because this kid touched me so much. I was basically ringing in his family's thing. His mom was there. I believe he had a couple of siblings. And he was about 7 or 8 years old, maybe even younger, but I think he was in that range. And he kept looking at me while I was doing this, which I get a lot. You get a lot of stares, somebody my age, painted nails. And out of nowhere, he looks right at me and says, "I think you're amazing." And I was blown away because I never know what to expect when kids talk. And suddenly he finishes with, "I think you're amazing that you paint your nails and you wear women's jewelry and you don't care what anyone thinks." And I looked right at him and I said, "Just remember that. I learned it too late in my life. And you need to learn that whatever you want to be. Be yourself early in life. Don't wait." I waited. I didn't tell him all this. I just told him learn that early in life. And when I was finished, his mother said, "Wow, a lesson and savings. What more could I want?" And that little boy, for the rest of the day, every time I thought of him, I would tear up, whether I was working or even when I got home. And I didn't know if they were good tears or bad tears. And I won't lie to you. I just didn't know, because there was one side of me that was so amazed by this young man and gave me hope for the future, because I see so much negativity in the world that this showed me, wow, there are people that actually respect other people that are that young. They get it at such a young age. But it made me sad because of the fact that all the years I lost not being myself and trying to be stuff for everyone else. So to decide to be a drag queen, I don't know if that's my future. It's fun to think about, and I might want to do it in a one-off. But I'll do it when the time is right. And that's what I got to remember, that you got to do things when the time is right. Maybe I wasn't capable to be myself in the early years, and I got to remember that. It's not wasted time. It's stuff that you learn from. Yes, it would have been amazing to be young and so full of life, like I can be at times now, to just be myself. But I obviously wasn't ready. All right, didn't think I'd get so sappy so soon, but we're going to take a short break, and I'll be back with another segment. And we're back. I won't apologize for getting sappy, because that's what I do on this show. I get irritated, I get fun-loving, I get sappy. All those things. Depends what mood I'm in. I'm actually in a really good mood, so don't get me wrong. Just because I tear up, that actually, I can always tell I'm in a good mood when I tear up in a good way, because it means that my heart is open to things. If that makes any sense. And I'm going to use that heart-opening thing for another segment coming up, because I want to relive wonderful summers that I used to have on a street I used to live on. And I thought with the summer having a couple weeks left, it would be a good time. But first, I'm going to get out my edgy side now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to get too edgy. I just want to talk about a subject that's been really bugging me as of late, and it's reviews. Movie reviews. And and I have nothing against movie reviews. I follow some reviewers. Even as a kid, I remember watching Siskel and Ebert and absolutely loving, their thumbs up, thumbs down. I love that. And it never affected me. Even as a kid, it never affected me. If Siskel and Ebert said a movie was awful, I could still come out and enjoy it. Or if they said it was incredible, I'd be like, that was crap. But I find nowadays a lot of people put a lot of credit into movie reviewers, when I actually think a lot of them don't have the credentials. Because let's be honest, I don't care how many times you've spent training to be a movie reviewer. Your opinion is just as important as a casual viewer. But that being said, you do put a lot of emphasis in somebody who may have been studied movies. Though I personally think people who study movies don't get the full enjoyment of the movies. So then my next criteria is people who've seen a lot of movies. And I'm not talking like I've seen every summer blockbuster ever. I mean people who see a variety of movies. So people get excited seeing the small independent films just as they do the big summer blockbusters. But nowadays before anybody writes me out on this, I do get the actual humor of this, because I am now going to say that anybody can be a movie reviewer now. Now with video podcasts and with, cams and stuff, anybody can. And if you go on YouTube, everybody can be. You've got all people from all walks of life. And I enjoy a lot of some of the new reviewers out there. I think some of them are absolutely fabulous. I do take a lot at heart, and at the end of the day, I go to the movie and make my own decision. A lot of people go into the movies with the ideas that the reviewers give them, and basically come out with, wow, the exact same review. Now, in some cases, I think that's true if the movie is ultimately bad. But I have seen some movies that people have said are ultimately bad, and I just don't get why people get them. I just assume it's different tastes, but I think people need to watch the reviews after they see a movie. Number one, you're risking the chance of spoilers, because even in non-spoiler reviews, which I tend to watch, some people still... Sometimes you can't help but give away a spoiler. I love that people ask me what my opinions of movies are, but I always usually say, okay, but this is me. This isn't you. I remember I like a lot of crap movies as well as like great movies. But recently, people just automatically, they're sitting in the theater and I hear them talking about, well, I'm not holding up much faith on this. Critics didn't like it. And I'm thinking to myself, right there, I don't care what you say, right there, that is a person that is coming in with a negative attitude. And it's hard to enjoy a movie when you've got this in your head, because you see one thing that bugs you, and suddenly you're going to be looking for all the things the reviewer said. Just let it go, and if you come out and you still want to throw up in a waste paper basket, then you probably didn't like that movie. But if you come out like, oh, that took my heart away. Two cases in point is the DC universe has been having some issues. In fact, to the point where, and I think this is utterly stupid, that DC fans want Rotten Tomatoes to be shut down, which is crazy. Rotten Tomatoes, I use the site. I use it more for humor's sake. I don't take anything, For those of you who don't know, Rotten Tomatoes is a review company that basically takes all the critics' reviews and they basically work it on a percentage so they can say, this movie is 85% fresh, which means most people like it. I like it for interest's sake, but I don't hold true to it because I don't follow the status quo in anything. But sadly, a lot of people do. And only in some cases have I actually seen. But anyhow, the DC fans are trying to shut this down because they're saying the negative views are stopping people from going to the theater. And, they just recently had Batman versus Superman, which a lot of people didn't like. I, however, loved it. Still one of my favorite movies of the year. Every time I see it, it seems to get better and better. Can't wait to see the deluxe edition or the ultimate edition, which adds another half hour to it. But anyhow, a lot of people, reviewers went to see this movie a couple of weeks before it came out. And so automatically we were talking about this. You know, 3 full weeks of critics telling us. And some of them were horrible. Even people I enjoyed looking to would actually dump on Batman versus Superman, even when they were talking about stories that wasn't about Batman versus Superman. So if they mentioned how awesome Marvel movies were, they'd say, not like that Batman versus Superman. It's like they would try to find ways to get it in. And it got into people's heads. And then people who went in, had this in their head. So, I'm not saying people, can't think for themselves, but I think this relies too heavily on this. So this is one of the cases that I think people went into it already wanting to hate the film. I've actually found quite a lot of people who enjoyed the film immensely. They found problems with it, but overall they said it wasn't as bad as people said. But the dumping thing was crazy, and a lot of that dumping happened before people even saw the movie. I'm sorry, if you tell me you think a movie sucks before you've seen it, I can't take your words seriously after you've seen it, because you had a preconceived notion. Another incident that recently happened that people, I think, were swayed by reviews was the new Ghostbusters movies. The new one with Melissa McCarthy and Leslie Jones and Kristen Wiig and Chris Hemsworth. And I think I saw the movie, and I think what happened was when the movie first came out, the reviews were really mixed. And people were coming out honestly saying, I really didn't like that movie, and then other people said it was, fantastic. I don't know what people were talking about. But what happened was I found that after the movie was released, and this should never happen to anyone, Leslie Jones, for no apparent reason, started getting viciously attacked, which I thought was absolutely horrendous. That she got so attacked. And what started happening was suddenly people were putting their love for the new Ghostbusters movie. And I watched some interesting videos after I had seen it. And don't get me wrong, I actually thought it was an okay movie. I wasn't the biggest Ghostbusters when I first saw it in 85 or whatever it was. So I wasn't the biggest, 84 I think it was. Anyhow, I wasn't the biggest fan of it then. I've come to adore it more. But I thought the new one was pretty much on par. I didn't think there was anything spectacular about it. But what happened was when people started to feel sorry for this woman getting dumped on, suddenly there was this over-compassion. Even reviewers were calling it, this was an amazing movie. And I think what happened, and I watched some video essays, and a couple were from women, said that what happened was that they over-promoted it to say it was really awesome, you have to check this out, greatest thing ever, to compensate for the fact that these people were getting banged on. And I think people went into the movie saying, I'm going to love this movie no matter what because it's about feminism. And it's not. It really isn't. Feminism is a very important topic. And to put it all into the movie Ghostbusters 2016 is almost insulting to feminism. It's just a movie like anything else. But the fact of the matter is reviewers got to the point where they were giving it higher ratings. And then you talk to them or listen to their full reviews and they'd say, well, this was okay, this was mediocre. And then by the end of it, how did you give it such a high rating, even though you're basically telling me it wasn't all that great? And so people went into the theater going, well, you know what, I'm gonna enjoy this. And I think that kind of swayed them in a bit. At the end of the day, I know I'm going to get yelled at for this, but that's okay. But I do believe that we put a lot of emphasis. And just keep in mind, a lot of the reviewers nowadays, including myself, the only reason I consider myself a fairly good reviewer is the fact that I've seen a lot of movies from a lot of genres. That's the only thing. I've never studied movies. I don't want to study movies. I study movies to a point because I like to read about history of movies and stuff. And I've even watched documentaries on how they film stuff because I'm interested in it. But I don't take it to a point where it suddenly ruins. I've had a lot of people said I studied movies. I can't even enjoy a movie now without seeing problems in it. You know? And I don't want to ever be in that place because you guys all know my love of movies. And I never want that to happen to me. So, but keep in mind, one of the new terms that I absolutely love, and this is a term you didn't hear a lot of when I was watching Siskel and Ebert and stuff like that. But I hear this so much now, and I love watching Collider Movie Talk. And as much as I love all those guys, they use this term so much. I won't say all of them, but there's one or two that use this almost in every thing they talk about. And it's, to me, I will explain where I think this comes from. It's definitely a word for a new generation. Characters' motives. I didn't feel their motivation in this film. First of all, when I hear it first, I first think of myself as, wow, that's really pretentious. Because when you watch a movie, you don't notice the thing, what are their motives? If it's a good movie, the motive should be there without being there. But to actually just sit there and talk about it. And some movies can create motives with no problem. Other people can create motives. They just need a scene or two, and that's enough. But unfortunately, sometimes it isn't. A lot of people had problems with the motivations of Batman and Superman in the new movie. But I just don't need everything spoon-filled to me. You know, I know we've grown up on a Harry Potter, Pixar, Marvel's kind of universe where everything is, we have to see scenes for everything. I didn't. I grew up with movies of the 70s, 80s, where we just saw stuff by an emotional reaction or just something in their face even. So anyhow, they'd always talk about, I need to see the character's motivation. And the more I see it, the more I get. And I don't know if it's like younger people trying to sound more thing. And the Collider guys are probably just a little bit younger than me. So they're not young guys. But this new character motivation that I always hear talking is the most ridiculous thing. I don't think it's weird to talk about it at times. But to bring it up for every review, I think it's ridiculous, okay? And the reason why, I think it's because we are a video game generation. See, when we grew up, we had stuff like Frogger and Pac-Man and you know, Pong, and we didn't try to analyze the motivation of Pac-Man. But so many video games have got motivation, and at the beginning they have a narrative that tell you this is what you have to achieve, and then it'll achieve this, and then the story will open and achieve. And that's where I think this character motivation, because these gamers kind of play these video games that get you from A to B to C to D, and they need it spelled so out, like, oh, we've unlocked a new level, here's more of the story. And they watch movies and have to see that. Because if they don't get it, like, oh, I didn't see the scene that motivated them to go to this sequence. And anybody who knows people in general do not have that. Not everything in life goes from A to B to C to D. If your life's going in that order, by all means, I hope it's a great one. But me, it's going A, B, D, F, G, back to E, you know. It's all over the place. So this whole character motivation thing is just, to me, I believe it's from the gamers industry. And as much as I have a lot of people who are gamers. If you review a movie to me, I do keep that in mind. I'm not saying that you don't have an opinion I don't respect, but I do realize that big gamers that get bored of movies easy, to me, that tells me all red flags. Like, okay, you're not really a movie fan. You're a casual movie fan, okay? If you were bored that quickly in a movie, you know, we come from a generation where kids used to sit through Mary Poppins, which is 2.5 hours, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. We love that stuff. You sit a kid through that, a couple of them might sit through it, but my God, most of them will be looking for, like, where's my tablet? And it's sad because, there's nothing wrong with a nice, slow-moving movie every once in a while. Anyhow, all I'm saying, go see the movie. Then have fun watching the reviews of your favorite people, and you can debate them, you can discuss them. That's where the fun comes in. You can rip your hair out because somebody doesn't get, a movie that you didn't like. But judge it for yourself. Don't go in with all this pollution. And that's what it is. I'm walking in with all these other people's negatives and positive thoughts, and that's what's gonna... No, just go in and enjoy. Don't take all that baggage with you. The only thing you should be walking in that theater with is a box of popcorn, maybe some candy, and a pop. Whatever you want. Anyhow, I've ragged enough about critics, and I'm going to be back, and we're going to take some fun-loving memories when we get back. I'm back with my final segment on this episode. Hopefully you've been enjoying it so far. Anyhow, I'm going to do some reminiscing. The summer is almost coming to an end. I don't want to push it too much to the end because we still got a lot of time. And September is now kind of an official summer month because May doesn't really feel like it sometimes. But anyhow, every generation says that their generation had the best growing up time. So I'm going to say that first, so you don't think I'm just some old guy saying, we had the best times ever, and I feel so sorry for the later generations. I do feel sorry for them, but then I remind myself, well, they didn't know this, so I will declare that I love the time I grew up, because I knew life before the internet. And as much as I love the internet, and I know, ironically, I'm coming to you over the internet in some form, whether you got us on iTunes or YouTube or how. But the truth of the matter is I just love that I grew up in a world before computers. Yeah, my parents sat me in front of the TV, which is similar to, handing a 4-year-old a tablet. And laughing because, oh, look, they know how to use the tablet at such an early age. And then wonder why they're ignoring you when they're 7 or 8. When we waited till our teen years to ignore our parents. But anyhow, I want to talk about one specific point of my life. And that was when I lived on a wonderful street called Fife Street in Hamilton, Ontario. It's in the Sherman area. And just a wonderful neighborhood that I probably spent the really early years of my life. I would say my preteen years. And then when I hit preteens, we moved a couple of blocks away, which as a kid doesn't seem like too far, but I kept some friendships, but, a lot of them started dying out because, it's hard to keep long-distance friendships at that age. But Fife Street was so full of life. When we moved there, it was probably, I'm going to say, around 76, 77. And basically, it was this great little neighborhood. It wasn't very big. The street was actually not very big. There were bigger streets connected to it because we were close to Main Street. We were also close to Sherman. And basically, it had a lot of kids on that neighborhood. Kids of close to ages, but we had different ones. And I had some amazing friends there. Amazing as in they were amazing at the time. Sadly, I don't have a lot of them still in my life. And if we got into a room, we might wax nostalgic about Fife Street, but we would probably have no thing. I think from that era, I may have a couple of friends that I know. Ironically, if I look at my Facebook, my brother, Paul, who was a little older than me, he would have probably been in his teen years when he grew up there. I think I probably have more of his friends on my Facebook friends and keep in touch with them because I'm thinking of a couple now and it's like, yeah, I think I definitely have more. But Fife Street was a wonderful, magical street, and it was almost like, like an 80s movie. I'd say the 1950s, but I don't think we were ever that Leave It to Beaver. But it was almost close. But it was like, the kids would all hang out together and they'd have their little moments. There were fights and, inner kids fighting. Then we'd all get together. Sometimes we'd break off into groups, but sometimes we'd all come together. And I remember, I may have talked a little bit about Fife Street before, but I wanted to give it its own segment because it's such an endearing moment. I recently talked about swimming pool on Fife Street, and all the kids would come over to my house, and, on Victoria Day weekend, we'd all go to my neighbor's house who had one of the only driveways on the street. They were one of the first because eventually a lot of people got driveways, but they were one of the first. And we would light off fireworks in the yard. And I know I've talked about that too. I remember we used to have this big tree just a couple of doors down from me on this lady's property. And we used to play hide and seek. And that tree was the ultimate tree. And I just remember having so many laughs. I remember one of my favorite hide and seek stories was we used to have this crazy Hungarian woman named, I don't know, should I name her? Oh, she's probably not with us anymore. Her name was Lisa, and she had this beautiful Siamese cat named Buchika. And she was such a fun-loving lady, but she was known to drink. It was called social drinking back then. And basically, she would come out sometimes in her slip and play hide and seek with us and count on the tree and come looking for us until some of the other parents would be like, I think you should go inside, Lisa, you're in your slip and slippers and stuff. And all the kids in the neighborhood, we had our own dynamic. There was our leaders and followers. I was definitely a follower that year. But we had so many wonderful stories, and just the imaginations ran wild. We would play Star Wars. We would play, so many different games, and we'd play board games, and we'd play in each other's backyards, and we'd not have to worry about the world, and we'd go to the variety store. I remember right after supper, we'd all get a quarter or $1, and we'd go buy Charlie's Angels cards and caps where we'd sit there with a rock and just make little explosions with these cap-like things, which, when I think about it, is such a waste of money because we didn't even put them in cap guns. We'd just get a rock. And I remember it kind of scared me, but I did it anyhow because I was a badass and I didn't want the other kids to think I wasn't. I had a really good friend on that thing, Richard Kaminsky. I will say his name, because I know he's not listening to this, but I hope he thinks of me in a good way once in a while. And Rick and I were best friends, and I'd follow Rick everywhere, and he was just amazing. I also had another great friend, David Masalio. I'm still close with his family, but not him. As I said, his big brother, actually, when we first moved to Fife, his big brother Steve actually made me cry when I was a little kid, and I used to not like him too much at first. Then I got used to him, and now he's actually one of my... I'm probably a closer friend to him than my brother is right now. I stay in touch with him and his wife and stuff, and they're really lovely people. The Masalios themselves, I went camping with them all the time. That was back in the day. You could just, and I know it still happens, but I'd just go off for a week or two with this family that we trusted, and it blows my mind to think that I was actually on these camping trips, and they would make me feel part of the family, and it was just amazing. And David and I were very inseparable at the time. Then there were other families that, the Mastis, Maddie and Jackie and Cindy and their little brother Dean. And then there was Derek Anderson, who was our only child on the street, who, I barely remember him. I wish I could see him. When I close my eyes, I picture a young Jason Bateman. But I have so many great memories with Derek, even though he was kind of, I'm not trying to say he was the bad boy, because I got along great with him, and he wasn't. He was just very different. I've never even thought of even trying to look him up, because I just don't think he'd have any interest. But I'd like to think all the people, and then, later, one of the few friends I did keep was one of my best friends eventually, Craig Keogh, but when I lived on Fife, I was not a fan. He was just this tough little kid that he was a couple of years younger than me, and he was just so, it's just rough around the edges, I'll say. But it was later that I got to meet him more when my mother and his mother became the best of friends, and she would bring him over and they would play video games with my brother, and then we wound up becoming really great friends. Like great friends. I'll definitely have to talk about him more. He is one of the few that I actually keep track of, although we're not really close. We have shared moments every once in a while. He's one of my last real links to Fife. Well, no, I can't say that, because as I said, my brother had a group of friends, and when I watched that 70s show, because this was in the late 70s, I see my brother's friends in that group. They may not act the same, but a lot of the stuff they do is a lot similar. And as I said, I'm friends with a lot of my brother's friends on Fife Street, which I'm very happy about because, my brother was known as Big Red and I became Little Red for a little while. And my heart fills up when I think of Fife Street. It was such an amazing place to grow up. And I hope that everybody who lived on Fife Street, whether it's the parents or there is still a few parents still around, although sadly a lot of them have passed. But I hope that I'm not alone. I'd like to think all the kids, even though their lives are more complicated now, some of them probably didn't go the way they hoped. Some went probably further than they hoped. Whatever the case, I hope that when they think of Fife Street, they smile. Because I do. And sometimes we drive past Fife Street and I look on the street and I just kind of try to remember things. And my memories as I get older, I'm still really good at them, but I get isolated memories here and there. One of my friends that listens to this regularly, Gabriella, when I play certain songs, she always says, my Canon years, which is funny because I eventually moved to Canon, which is just around the corner. And I love that because I trigger memories for her. And so I hope that, that's the case with other people, that they think, oh, Fife Street, that was a wonderful time. I think I was a nice kid, so hopefully they have nice memories of me, because I don't remember being a horrible kid. I remember just nights just hanging out with these kids, and it was before the time we were really thinking about the heavy stuff, like sex or, what was going on in the world or, war or anything like that. But the seeds were there. The seeds were there. As I said, I go to Fife Street and I sometimes pass by it and I look and I see the odd kid around, and I really hope that there were multiple generations there that got to have the same feeling. Eventually we all moved away and went our separate directions and stuff. But I just hope and pray that there are multiple generations. Even today, I know nowadays it's more, arranging, friend dates going like, oh, we're going there, let's take them. It's not the same as, being able to go out and meeting with your friends. I know some areas, hopefully you're in an area where your kids can still do that. But I really do hope that there's a feeling of that. I would love to know that there were other generations of us. And I'm not just talking about my youth group. I'm talking about my brother's friends that had an amazing grown up, or what I looked up to, like, oh, it's going to be great being, though I don't remember my teen years being anything like that. But I do. I just really wish that more kids got to feel that. Because this is a group of kids that, as I said, I don't really hang with anymore. I do have older friends, but they come more from the canon years. But maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But it's still amazing when you can look back at those times and just remember, okay, the whole street's going to get together and they're going to do a barbecue. I remember us doing an MD carnival. I don't know if anybody remembers the carnivals for muscular dystrophy. You used to go to McDonald's and they give you this pack of stuff that you could do. And I remember the whole neighborhood participated in this. And we had booths where you could play games. And I remember I dressed as Darth Vader and I would talk to the kids and stuff like that. And we bought prizes and, we'd have food that they could buy and all, the proceeds went to MD. Blows me away when I think of stuff like that we actually did that stuff. Those were quite common in the 70s and early 80s. And, have yourself an MD carnival. It popped into my head. And this is the magic of that. I don't necessarily remember everything, but every once in a while I pop and I'm like Fife Street. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I just hope everybody, I wish they all had a group like that we might not know each other now. But I'd like to think that if I bump into them that, they make me smile. Because when I think about this wonderful street, I can think of the friendships. I can think of the emotions. I can think of the smells. I can think of the sounds. Sometimes even the tastes of, how hot dogs used to taste on my father's old grill that, maybe wasn't cleaned properly, but just had that great, little taste to it still. And I really do pray that that when I go past Fife Street, I always look for kids playing. I wonder if they're going to have the same magic. Because I really do think that little street, Fife, was so magical. I was so sad when I moved away, but my parents told me, hey, it's only a few blocks. It literally is, I think, 3 blocks away. And it still changed. My best friend, Rick, we were separated because we went to different schools. He went to a Catholic school. I went to regular school. But then he was going to be put into another, he was going to public school eventually. And what happened was I remember the day when this happened. I skipped a year. I had a teacher, I think I told you all that I skipped a year that probably made me a bad student, but was probably me, so I can't give it all the credit. But I remember the day that I told Rick that I skipped a year and we weren't going to be in the same classroom. And we were devastated because we were just the best of friends. And it did change things, because when we went into school, we weren't in the same classes, we were meeting new people, and it was just devastating because now it's suddenly your best friend isn't even there anymore. I guess I should have learned then that even back then you lose people all the time. It's what life is, but is it bad that sometimes I want to go back? I know they say you shouldn't look back. You should only move forward, but there's literal moments that I would just like to step in a time machine and just enjoy those moments again. I didn't expect to be whiny again. I laugh at myself. But it was nice memories, and I like to go back there. And maybe it's true you can't go back there. I'm sure if I met up with all those people, we'd reminisce about times that some of us would remember, some of us wouldn't remember. And then we'd be on our way. We've moved on. Anyhow, that's enough of me waxing nostalgic. I had a great time. I hope you did too. Sorry that I got a little whiny. No, I'm not gonna. I always apologize, but why? If I haven't turned you off from my tears yet, then it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Anyhow, I'll be back with another brand new episode next week. And until then, I will see you very soon.